Hi everyone, it's Anahita Rao back again with the Planet series, and today we will be speaking about the most dreadful planet, Saturn. So after Jupiter, Saturn is the furthest physical planet, not taking into account Uranus, Pluto and Neptune. It's also considered to be the darkest of planets for that reason, because it's the furthest from the Sun. Now, the reason that it's the most dreaded planet is because it's considered to be the greatest malefic in Vedic astrology, as we all know. I think that if I was to choose just one word to describe Saturn, I think I would say that would be limitation. A redemption from the Saturn afflictions in a birth chart means basically understanding the limits that are imposed on you by Saturn, especially when you're going through the Saturn Dasha. It kind of makes you a lot more realistic about what you're able to achieve and what you have in front of you and what you're capable of. So it makes you basically work within those parameters. So understanding those limits actually can serve a higher purpose and get you to your goal, although not without hard work and dedication. Saturn also signifies debts, setbacks and obstacles of all kinds, delays, endings, restrictions, ill health, discipline. It is, of course, the most karmic planet because it's known as the Lord of Karma. It's the teacher who moves slowly and operates on a soul level to bring the changes that are required in your life, which is why it's called the hardest of the taskmasters. Of course, it's similar to every other planet in that its role is to ultimately spiritualize, but it does so differently than the other planets. What Saturn does is it brings sorrow in your life, then it creates restrictions, and then it removes the veil of illusion that we all live in. Because after all, we live in this world, and then it brings loneliness and isolation, and this is particularly painful because this process that I just described happens quite slowly in a person's life, and so it becomes quite difficult to bear. This is something that people really feel very much so in their Saturn Dasha, especially, or if you've got a planet that like the sun or the moon situated right with Saturn, you're going to feel this sort of heaviness, this burdensomeness. It takes away all the social status distinction. It can also affect your career path, your family life, and because the ideal purpose of Saturn is to create harmony with the soul and the spirit. There is a pivotal and very much dreaded phase that is quite popularly known in Vedic astrology as Sati, which is basically 7.5 years of Saturn moving through your very sort of pivotal areas in your chart. So it starts with the 12th house. And that's 12th house from the moon, so that's 2.5 years there. When it conjuncts the moon, that's another 2.5 years, and when it's second from the moon, that's another 2.5 years. So this phase of a total of 7.5 years, normally it happens about 3 times in a person's life, depending on how long they live, but on average it's 3 times. So basically, mentally, you feel quite sort of tormented by this phase, and everyone goes through it to different degrees, particularly when Saturn is right in the second phase and right sort of very much on top of your moon. At that time, a lot of people will exit your life. You may go through depression. And this is the first period. If you're lucky, in the first Saturn phase, you will be a student, and so you will be busy with studies. And I think that's actually a very effective way of using a Saturn phase, particularly Sati. The second time it comes around in your life, normally you would lose one parent. And the third time, if you live beyond 65, it comes into your life. It normally means the end of your own life. Now, the key to dealing with Saturn phases is to surrender and to let go. Very similar to Ketu. As the more you resist, the more painful the transformation is. Now, the reason, of course, for that is because Saturn is the Karaka for the 8th house itself, which is all about transformation and endings and rebirth. It's also the Karaka for longevity, for your profession, for karma, of course, generally. Although I have to say, all planets, of course, are going to show your karma just to one degree or the next. It also is a Karaka for death, for life, for adversity of all kinds, for conduct, for service, disease, poverty, trouble, losses, theft. Your servants are represented by Saturn, old age, dishonour, imprisonment, grief, agriculture. And the west direction is also Saturn. Another really great remedy that I found with my clients that works really well, and I've been told that it gives good results, is to fast on a Saturday. And this is very, very helpful if you're going through A, Saturn, the Sati period I mentioned, or B, if you're going through Saturn's Dasha. So if you fast on a Saturday, which is Saturn's day, he seems to be quite pleased with that, because he seems to be pleased with all sorts of austerities. If you treat any of your subordinates well, that's also a very good remedy, including your servants. Treat them especially well, and do any kind of selfless service. Volunteering in a soup kitchen, for instance, or anything like that. So that's a bit about Saturn. Of course, one can say so much more, but I hope that you found that helpful. If you did, please subscribe below, and I will continue to make more videos on the planet series. Thank you. Bye bye.